Do you know what truly makes old age painful? It's not just the physical aches or the medications on your nightstand. What makes growing old hard is the slow realization that certain truths no one ever sat you down to explain, begin to shape your daily life in ways you didn't expect. Many folks believe they're prepared for retirement, for slower days, for a quieter home, but very few are ready for the emotional and psychological shifts that come with aging. This video is here to shed light on those overlooked realities. We're going to walk through 6 truths about aging that, if ignored, can turn your later years into a time of regret, resentment, and quiet suffering. These aren't scare tactics or abstract warnings. They're lessons that come from watching others suffer through what could have been avoided with just a little clarity. And they are lessons you can still act on no matter where you are in life. Each of these truths might feel uncomfortable at first, but by the end, I hope you'll feel a little more grounded, a little more in control, and a whole lot more aware of the choices ahead. So stay with me, because the 6th truth in particular is something most people don't notice until it's already taken its toll. Understanding these ideas could help you protect your peace of mind, and even shape a future that feels lighter and freer than you thought possible. Let's begin. Number 1. The shrinking circle of companionship. One of the first changes that catches many people off guard in later life is just how small their world becomes. Friends move away, spouses pass on, children get busy, and suddenly the calendar that was once filled with birthdays, dinners, and phone calls becomes noticeably quieter. What was once a bustling network of companionship can narrow into a quiet routine that feels more isolating with each passing season. And while it's easy to blame others for drifting away, the truth is that this shrinking isn't always someone's fault. It's simply a natural part of aging that very few people prepare for. Many seniors find themselves wondering why the phone doesn't ring as much, or why fewer people drop by just to say hello. But what's often missed is that relationships, just like physical health, need regular care and attention. Without intentional effort to reach out, stay engaged, or even make new connections, the silence becomes more than just peaceful. It turns into loneliness. And that loneliness over time doesn't just weigh on the heart. It affects everything. It changes sleep patterns. It drains energy. It even alters how we perceive pain and illness. There's a common misconception that loneliness is simply the absence of people. But in reality, it's the absence of connection. You can be surrounded by others and still feel deeply alone if the interactions lack meaning, warmth, or mutual understanding. That's why it's not enough to simply be near people. You need to feel seen and heard. If you used to enjoy a weekly lunch with a group of friends and now that tradition has quietly faded, that matters. If you used to attend community gatherings or volunteer activities but haven't stepped out in months, that matters too. Take, for example, someone like George, a 76-year-old widower who spent decades working in sales. When he retired, he thought he'd finally enjoy the peace he'd earned. But after a few months, the quiet felt more like absence than rest. Without the daily interactions of his old job or the weekend get-togethers his wife used to organize, he found himself going days without meaningful conversation. It wasn't until he started joining a local walking group and making regular calls to old colleagues that he began to feel like himself again. The reality is, people don't always stay in your life by default. You have to invite them to. You have to be the one to send the message, suggest the coffee, or show up, even when it's inconvenient. Waiting for others to come around only leads to disappointment, and the older we get, the more intentional we must become. If you don't, the silence becomes louder, the loneliness heavier. That's why this first truth is so important. If you're not prepared for the natural shrinking of your social world, and if you don't have a plan to actively keep your connections alive, it's all too easy to find yourself alone in ways that are deeper and more painful than you expected. Number 2. The weight of unmanaged physical pain becomes more common with age. That much is no surprise. But what does catch many people off guard is how suffering and pain are not the same thing. Pain is the sensation. Suffering is the story we build around it. And too often, older adults unknowingly feed that suffering by trying to ignore the pain, hide it, or resist the changes it brings. This truth isn't about whether or not you'll experience pain. That part is almost guaranteed. But about how your mindset and your response to pain determine whether it steals your life or simply becomes a part of it. Some aches creep in gradually, A stiff shoulder in the morning, knees that complain on the stairs, or hips that don't move quite like they used to. Others come in the form of chronic illnesses, arthritis, neuropathy, back issues that demand constant attention. But here's the thing. When we pretend those changes aren't happening, when we cling to the version of our bodies that existed 10, 20, or 30 years ago, we end up suffering far more than we need to. We push ourselves the wrong way. We delay treatment. We refuse tools that could make life easier. And little by little, pain takes over more than just the body. It settles into our mood, our relationships, even our identity. There's also a quiet, kind of shame many older adults carry when it comes to physical decline. Some feel embarrassed to ask for help, as though using a cane or taking pain medication is an admission of weakness. Others get frustrated when their body no longer moves the way it used to, and they let that frustration fester into bitterness. But here's the truth. Adapting isn't surrender. In fact, adaptation is one of the most courageous acts of aging well. Imagine someone like Linda, an 82-year-old who spent much of her life gardening. A few years ago, she began having severe wrist pain from arthritis. At first, she tried to push through it, refusing to wear braces or adjust her tools. Eventually, she gave up gardening altogether because it hurt too much. But after a neighbor suggested she try raised beds, ergonomic tools, and shorter sessions with more rest, Linda found a new rhythm. The pain didn't disappear, but her joy returned, because she stopped pretending she had to do everything the way she used to. We often forget that how we move through pain affects how we feel about our days. When you make peace with your body as it is, not as it was, you begin to reclaim energy that was otherwise spent in resistance. Things like stretching routines, light strength exercises, warm baths, or even just more mindful movement throughout the day can help manage discomfort in ways that medication alone can't. But the first step is accepting the pain without letting it become your identity. The people who age with grace aren't the ones who avoid pain entirely. They're the ones who respond to it with wisdom instead of fear. They listen to their bodies, they ask for help, and they find new ways to live fully, even within limitations. And that response, more than anything, determines the emotional weight that pain brings into daily life. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's move forward. Number 3. The myth of unconditional family support as we grow older. Many of us carry a quiet expectation that our children, grandchildren, or close relatives will naturally be there for us, emotionally, physically, and even financially. After all, we spent decades supporting them, loving them, and putting them first, so it feels reasonable, even fair, to hope for that support in return. But this belief, though understandable, is one of the most painful illusions of aging. And unless we confront it early, we set ourselves up for deep disappointment. Here's the truth that few people say out loud. No one, not even your own children, owes you their time. Love can be deep. Family can be close. But each person, your son, your daughter, even your grandchildren, is living a life full of responsibilities, struggles, and decisions of their own. And if we build our emotional foundation on the assumption that they will always show up just because they're family, we're placing our peace in someone else's hands. This isn't to say that your family doesn't love you. They probably do. But love doesn't always translate to availability, and it certainly doesn't guarantee presence. When a grown child forgets to call, or a holiday visit doesn't happen, it's easy to spiral into thoughts like, they don't care, or after all I've done, they can't even spare a day. Those thoughts grow into bitterness, and that bitterness becomes a filter through which we see every interaction, or lack thereof. It's crucial to separate emotional dependence from emotional connection. Depending on others for your happiness, your plans, or your sense of purpose is risky at any age, but especially in later years. The people around you will change. They will get busy, and sometimes they will disappoint you, not because they're bad people, but because they're human. Think about someone like Helen, a 79-year-old who spent her entire adult life raising 3 kids. She imagined that retirement would be filled with visits, weekly dinners, and time with her grandchildren. But once her kids moved to different cities and their own lives became more complicated, Helen found herself waiting by the phone more than talking on it. At first, she felt forgotten, but instead of stewing in that pain, she shifted her focus to what she could control, joining a local community center, hosting game nights with neighbors, and even mentoring young moms in her area. Her family still mattered deeply, but they were no longer her only source of meaning. Aging well means facing reality with open eyes and an open heart. It means letting go of unspoken expectations and choosing instead to build a life that doesn't depend on whether or not someone else shows. But if they do, it's a blessing. If they don't, you're still whole. This truth can be hard to swallow, but embracing it brings freedom. When you stop expecting others to fill your days or validate your worth, you create space to explore your own interests, deepen your friendships, and grow in ways you never imagined possible. The most resilient older adults are those who learn to appreciate what comes without needing it to look a certain way. Love your family, be grateful for their presence, but don't hinge your happiness on it, because the moment you release that burden from them and from yourself, you begin to reclaim a kind of peace that no one can take away. Number 4, the loss of purpose. Without a morning reason, waking up in the morning gets harder when you no longer have a reason to. That may sound blunt, but it's one of the most overlooked truths about aging. When the kids are grown, the job is done, and the house is quiet. Many older adults find themselves wondering what they're supposed to do with all this time. And while some look forward to the calm, others quickly realize that too much unstructured time can begin to feel more like emptiness than freedom. What most people don't understand until they live it is that purpose isn't just something grand or dramatic. It's often small and personal. It's the reason you get dressed instead of staying in bed. It's the task that gives shape to your day. Without it, the hours blur together and the days lose their meaning. Over time, this lack of direction can quietly erode your sense of identity. You're no longer the manager, the parent, the teacher, the caregiver. You're just here. And when you're not sure why, that's when the heaviness creeps in. Many seniors try to fill that void with distractions. They watch television for hours, scroll through social media, or nap to pass the time. But those things don't satisfy the deeper need for contribution or engagement. They simply occupy space. And after a while, even the distractions start to feel dull. It's not that you're lazy, it's that your soul is hungry for purpose. Take Bill, for example, a 74-year-old who retired after 4 decades as a city bus driver. At first, he welcomed the slower mornings and freedom from alarm clocks. But by the 3rd month, he began waking up later and later, unsure of what the day was even for. It wasn't until his daughter invited him to help at her local school as a part-time crossing guard that something shifted. Suddenly, he had a reason to get up, people to greet, and stories to tell again. The joy on his face returned, not because he was busy, but because he was needed. Purpose doesn't have to be tied to productivity. It can come from caring for a pet, growing tomatoes on the back porch, writing letters to friends, or simply being someone others can count on for kindness. What matters is that it gives your life shape and direction, that you end the day feeling like you moved something forward, even if it's just your own peace of mind. When older adults feel aimless, depression isn't far behind. And it's not because life is over. It's because the script has changed and no one taught them how to write a new one. Purpose is not something that gets handed to you in retirement. It's something you have to create. But the good news is it's never too late. If you wake up and feel dread instead of excitement, it's time to ask what you're missing, not in your schedule, but in your heart. What would make you feel useful again? What would give your day meaning? Start small. Purpose doesn't have to impress anyone. It only needs to resonate with you. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 4 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's move forward. Number 5, the burden of pride. When asking for help, there comes a time in life when independence, once your badge of honor, begins to work against you. You start needing a little more time to stand up, a little more help to carry the groceries, or maybe just a hand navigating technology or appointments. And yet, for many older adults, the hardest part isn't the task itself, it's the asking. Pride has a way of convincing us that needing support is a weakness, when in truth, it's one of the most natural parts of being human. The fear of becoming a burden runs deep. We don't want to inconvenience our children or admit that we can't do what we once could. But that quiet resistance often leads to deeper struggles. We miss out on experiences. We delay medical care. We let things in the house go unattended. We isolate ourselves rather than risk embarrassment. Over time, the cost of silence becomes far greater than the temporary discomfort of asking for help. What's interesting is that most people around us don't mind helping. They often want to. It's the way we refuse that makes them hesitate. When we brush off offers with a forced smile or insist we're just fine, we train others to believe we don't need them. Then we wonder why they stop showing up. But the truth is, vulnerability doesn't push people away. It pulls them closer. Think of someone like Raymond, an 80-year-old who struggled to keep up with yard work but wouldn't say a word. His neighbors noticed the overgrown lawn and offered to lend a hand, but he politely declined every time. Eventually, they stopped asking. It wasn't until a small fall sent him to the hospital that he realized pride had left him not only physically strained, but emotionally isolated. When he finally opened up and allowed others in, the support came pouring back, not out of pity, but out of respect. Asking for help doesn't mean surrendering your dignity. In fact, it often shows wisdom and strength. It says, I know my limits, and I care enough about my well-being to act on them. And when you allow someone else to help, you're giving them the gift too. The chance to feel useful, to connect, and to contribute in a meaningful way. There's also a distinction between help and dependence. You can still be independent while receiving support. Using a walker doesn't make you less of a person. Accepting a ride doesn't mean you've lost control. These are tools, not defeats. They're part of living smart, not giving up. Letting go of pride opens doors. It allows for deeper relationships, safer environments, and a better quality of life. It's not about giving in. It's about letting in. Letting in care, letting in community, letting in the reality that none of us were ever meant to do this alone. When you start embracing support not as a last resort, but as a natural part of life, you'll find that aging becomes less about loss and more about choosing wisely. And those choices, they're what define the kind of old age you'll experience. Number 6. The quiet damage of small daily neglect. Most people think decline comes all at once. A diagnosis, a fall, a major life event that marks the before and after. But in truth, what makes old age difficult often isn't a single moment. It's the slow drip of small choices, repeated day after day, that gradually chip away at our well-being, until we hardly notice how much we've changed. Ignoring those little habits, the ones that feel too minor to matter, can quietly build into a lifestyle that accelerates decline more than age itself ever could. The human body is incredibly adaptive. It responds to how we treat it moment by moment. If we nourish it well, it thanks us with energy and resilience. If we neglect it, even in small ways, it begins to fade. That means skipping breakfast too, often, sitting for hours without movement, going days without stepping outside, letting your thoughts spiral into worry without ever stepping back. These aren't catastrophic decisions on their own, but they compound. And over time, they shape how we feel, how we think, and even how we relate to the people around us. There's a kind of comfort in routine, but routines can be dangerous if they're built on inattention. Take something as simple as hydration. Many older adults drink far less water than they need, often without realizing it. The result? More fatigue, more confusion, more joint pain, and less motivation. Not because something's wrong with their body, but because the body isn't being supported. Or, think about sleep. Late-night television, irregular schedules, or untreated sleep apnea can steal rest so gradually that we blame age, when in fact, the root is habit. And it's not just the physical habits. Mental neglect plays an equally powerful role. Letting the mind go unchallenged, never reading, learning, or engaging in real conversations, can make thoughts feel sluggish and moods unpredictable. Emotional health suffers too when you don't give yourself outlets to process feelings or connect with others. Even things like gratitude or laughter, when missing, leave a gap that slowly grows into heaviness. Consider Walter, 81, who always prided himself on being sharp and capable. But after his wife passed away, he fell into quiet routines, toast and coffee for every meal, the same chair in the same room each day, television filling the silence. At first, it felt like rest. But within a year, he noticed his memory slipping, his balance off, his motivation low. His doctor found no major issues, but when Walter began to vary his meals, take daily walks, call old friends, and join a local book club, his strength began to return. Not because time reversed, but because daily life shifted. Small efforts matter more than dramatic changes. 5 minutes of movement, one healthy meal, one phone call, a moment of reflection in the morning. These things may seem insignificant, but they stack up. They signal to your body and your mind that you're still engaged, still in motion, still choosing life with intention. And that's the real danger of neglect. It's not the loss of ability, it's the loss of agency. The feeling that things just happen to you now rather than you having a say. But you do, you always have. And the smallest decision today, right now, can ripple outward in ways you'll feel tomorrow, next week, and for the rest of your life. So pay attention to the little things, because they are the big things. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 6 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Final thoughts as we wrap up this conversation. I want to gently remind you that aging itself isn't the problem. It's how we move through it, how we prepare for it, respond to it, and care for ourselves along the way. That determines whether these years feel like a gift or a burden. The 6 truths we've explored today aren't meant to scare you. They're meant to free you. Because once you see them clearly, you no longer have to live in confusion or frustration over what's happening in your life. You begin to understand it. Maybe one of these truths stood out more than the others. Maybe it was the part about shrinking, social circles, or the quiet damage of daily neglect. Maybe it was about family and the expectations we carry that no one ever speaks aloud. Whatever it was, I hope it gave you pause. Not in a way that weighs you down, but in a way that lights a small fire inside. A fire to reflect, to shift, and to care for yourself with more gentleness and more intention than ever before. These later years can be filled with deep meaning, new growth, and surprising joy. But that only happens when you face reality with open eyes and an open heart. No more pretending. No more waiting for someone else to make it better. The truth is, your life is still yours, and it can still be beautiful. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to use it in your life. Your thoughts are important to us, so don't hesitate to share them. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.